You're listening to 15 Minutes, where we feature community leaders sharing what the rest of us should know but likely don't.
Hello, everyone. Michael Renfro here. I'm the host of 15 Minutes, Share Your Voice, where we talk with top-notch law firms and lawyers about what it takes to grow a successful law practice. This episode, as always, is brought to you by Gladiator Law Marketing, where we deliver tailor-made services to help you accomplish your objectives and maximize your growth potential. That's a mouthful. To have a successful marketing campaign and to make sure that you're getting the best ROI, your firm does need to have a better website and better content than the competition, simply put. So at GLM, we use artificial intelligence combined with machine learning, and then put on top of that literally more than a century of experience to outperform the competition. If you want to learn more, please go to Gladiator Law Marketing, which is all spelled standard, Gladiator Law Marketing, and that is GLADIATORLAWMARKETING.com. And with that, close this. Today's guest is Michael, and is it Elkins? Am I pronouncing that right? Elkins.
Yep,
okay,
got it.
So, Michael, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Before we even get into the interview, let me just kind of tell everybody what your practice area is, where you're located, just the general stuff, and anything else you'd like to throw in there in this beginning.
Yeah, sure. Fort Lauderdale, Florida-based, national, but practice nationally, labor and employment law, business, general business, and sports law.
Nice.
Been in this game for probably 21 years now.
Right.
I'm the founder of MLE Law, which is my own firm, which I founded in 2019.
Before I like the ML Major League.
Yeah, there you go. And before that, I worked for a series of Florida-based large to mid-sized law firms. I had a stint in there a long time ago where I had my own practice for a few years, eons and eons ago. I do a lot of work with the media, nationally quoted on a lot of employment and sports issues.
Especially that makes sense.
Yeah, as well as my practice. So that's a little bit about me.
Cool. No, that's awesome, man. So we've actually got somebody who we can truly shine the light on today.
There you go.
So let's ask this. And when I say get started, I'm going to focus it more since you kind of gave me that little bit of history there. How did you get started in the sports and the sports law?
Yeah, so sports was always a passion of mine. I think a lot of people, big
Right.
Sports fan, obviously grew up in New England. So Patriots, Red Sox, right?
Nice plug.
Yeah, there you go. So football season starting.
Mm-hmm.
So, I became a labor and employment lawyer, primarily representing companies, which is the base of my practice. And that's what I still do today. But I noticed down the road that there's a tremendous synergy and a dovetail between what I do, traditionally did, which is labor law, right? Because you have collective bargaining agreements and unions and sports. And so I thought, wow, these really go together.
Oh, I see the coalition right off the bat. I mean, you're still somebody's working for somebody else and they need to be represented.
Yeah. And there's a lot of other things that go with it. So I just started mining contacts, right, in the industry. I have a good friend who's done some work in the NBA as an executive.
Nice.
Started reaching out on social media, and before long, started handling some arbitrations for various coaches. Recently doing some work for some athlete representation agencies that have some litigation. So that's kind of how that started. It really was just sort of, I'd like to work in sports. I didn't graduate from an Ivy League school, so how am I going to do it? So it just really was get out there, pound the pavement, hustle, and try to sort of make it all fit. And so far, it's worked.
No, that's awesome. I truly am one that believes in FR, right? Everything happens for a reason.
Sure.
It gets us where we are. And I will ask this next one because I heard that, but how did you get started originally in the attorney game? Like what got you into that? Because I hear most attorneys say the same thing. They did not start out life thinking they were going to be an attorney.
Yeah, I kind of did. I think as far as I can remember, I kind of was like, I think I want to be a lawyer, and I'm not sure how I knew that. I've always had sort of a passion for, I guess, arguing in a way, exploring various sides of things. That's something I always did when I was younger. I was never sort of one-track minded. I always was like, what are the multiple angles here? So for me, it was a pretty natural thing. I didn't think I was going to be a lawyer. I think there was a period when I first went to college that I was a little lost and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And
right.
I didn't do so hot in college because I frankly didn't try. So I thought that dream was kind of lost. And then I just realized one day, like, look, I need to do something, because I had graduated college. I was waiting tables. Was not that there's anything wrong with that. I enjoyed it,
Nope.
but not what I wanted to do forever. So I took the LSAT and figured, look, there's somewhere that'll take me. And if I can get into law school, I can kind of make it all work. And so that's exactly what happened. And but I think that I think I wanted to be a lawyer. Not think, I did always want to be a lawyer.
For as long as you can remember.
Yeah, and I tell people this all the time, that there's a lot of miserable lawyers out there. I'm not one of them. I think I'm doing exactly what I was put on this earth to do. And now I think a lot of that, sure, the practice and the profession, like any profession, has its own issues. That's
Right.
any profession.
That's anything. Even the things that we love dearly, we're going to find. If here's the thing that I always find funny about that statement: do what you love and you'll be successful, right? It's a double-edged sword. You're gonna do what you love and be successful, but then you're not gonna love it the same way you did as you once loved it before it became a business, and then you have to run it as such, and that a lot of people they forget that. A lot of attorneys I know definitely forget that when they first go in, especially to like a solo practitioner situation,
I mean,
but go ahead.
I love what I do. I wake up every day, it doesn't feel like work. I mean, obviously, again, there's always an issue with any profession, but by and large, I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to do. And I think a lot of that, though, has to do with the manner in which I do it and the areas of law that I practice. It's different for me every day.
You don't do this. You're not one of the guys, as they say, checking off the boxes and filling in the blanks, and it's the same mundane thing every time.
No, my day is totally different every day. It starts early. It's always interesting. It's always different. I'm providing real value, real interaction with clients, high level sort of legal issues, that are being dealt with by the Supreme Court. Yes. So it's great. And I love it. I really do.
No, that's awesome. So I'm going to kind of wrap up a few of these questions. I know you got a chance to look at them, but you don't have them in front of you. So I'll just say it like this. I like to think of things when I talk about challenges or pitfalls, right? Mistakes, whatever word people choose. To me, they're no more than hurdles. And in fact, once we learn and we go through them, almost inevitably, in my life at least, I've seen that they have become the catalyst to a greater moment down the future once I got past that bad moment. So I ask you, what do you think was like the biggest challenge that turned into providing you with the biggest milestone and turning point of the practice, the current practice?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. And the answer is my prior incarnation on my own, which was between 2003 and 2007. I had a successful law firm. And then, to be quite frank, can we swear on this? Should I not swear?
You can swear. Go ahead, man.
To be frank, I fucked it all up. I just mismanaged it. It's kind of
it's what we do in our early stage. Hey, man, you got to learn from it, though, right? If you don't do that, you won't know what not to do later on.
Just a stupid kid, thought he knew everything, didn't understand a little bit. He didn't understand that didn't even want to discuss, do I even know what I don't know? That didn't matter. So
that wasn't an option at the time.
Let's put it that way. And luckily, I had a book of business, so I was able to close that firm and be a partner at various mid-sized to large law firms without any problems. But for sure, that failure allowed me to take this version of my own practice and sort of, what I say, do it the right way. Now, does that mean everything
2.0?
Yeah, 2.0. And then certainly not everything I do is perfect. I make a lot of mistakes. I know that. But at least now I know, and I ask. And I always, before I make decisions, sometimes if I feel like I'm maybe a little rash or am I stepping outside the wrong way here, I think back to what I did back then. And I think, all right, look, let's look back. Let's see, did you encounter this before? So maybe to be a little bit more deliberate. I mean, I'm certainly a risk taker by nature. My law firm is risky from a concept standpoint. Right. I'm very non-traditional, use of social media.
But you still learn from you learn from your errors, and you have, part of what makes a great lawyer is the fact the more cases they have under the belt, the more variations, right, that they have of where to go. I've always noticed that. I mean, it's literally part of y'all's mantra in the sense of when you go to law school, half of what you do is looking up old cases so you know how to handle them in the future, right?
Sure. Yep.
But I think one of the things you said, sorry, did you have something else? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't know if you've read this book, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. Have you heard of this book by chance?
I have not, but it sounds interesting.
It's funny enough. So it's kind of labeled as a children's book, but the first thing the guy says in there is it's for anybody from 80 to 8, right? So that got me right off the bat, and I read it. It takes about 30 minutes to read. It's a very short one, but one of the best quotes in there. It's just these 3 friends, right? Mole, fox, boy, horse. And the boy says to, I think it was the horse. I can't remember exactly which character, but says, "What's the bravest thing that you ever said?" And the horse replied, "Help."
Yeah.
Which I thought, like, you would love this book. It's literally nothing but philosophy. It's like the boy asks, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Kind. So it's kind of a book on Stoic philosophy, but written through the eyes of I tell people this. I'm a lover of Shel Silverstein and The Giving Tree, and the other ones that he did too, his poems and poetry. This reminds me of the closest thing I've ever seen to equal. In fact, it has surpassed. It is now my favorite book of all time, just because it's so simple and says everything it needs to. It's like he ripped it out of my head and put it down for the way that I've gotten to the point of where I am now at 50.
I mean, I'm definitely going to check that out. And you mentioned Stoicism. I mean, or Stoic philosophy. I use Stoicism every day. My favorite author is Ryan Holiday. I talk about that all the time. The Obstacle is the Way. The Daily Stoic, that whole line of books by Ryan is phenomenal. So I'll definitely check that out.
I'll check those out because I am not familiar with them. But it goes with kind of why I asked the question. I know we're diverted, but I love it. I truly believe now when at this point in my life, when something bad happens, I know it is the introduction to a better day. It may take 10 years. It may take 10 years to transpire, right? But if that bad moment didn't happen, then the good one never could.
Yeah, I mean
that's the balance.
And that's the entire book. The Obstacle is the Way.
I kind of figured out when you said, I kind of gathered that right from the name. Like you learn to look forward to them almost, and not, they're still bad. You're going to feel bad. You're going to have depressed moments. We're not perfect. I think the most perfect thing we can do is realize that we are not perfect and go with our imperfections, right? Yeah. Use the imperfections as a gift, really.
I mean, it's the whole idea of the impediment to action is the action, right? And the idea that, like you said, we're not perfect, and embracing those imperfections. And I tell people all the time, they always ask me, well, do you work on your weaknesses, right? That's like a big thing.
Yep.
And I understand what my weaknesses are. I play to my strength.
Yep.
With understanding what my weaknesses are. And so when I know where my weaknesses are, and I maneuver.
I announce them.
Yeah.
I announce them to people. I let them know, hey, I'm a dominating, interrupting. I'm all this, but I'm also all this. And this is how I'm going to help you.
And I'm okay with those weaknesses. I don't think I was when I first got into this game, however long ago. I think I probably covered that up or wasn't accepting.
I know I beat myself up for many years due to a lot of my weaknesses. I have ADHD and what's the other one? Obsessive compulsive disorder, right? So, I would back in the day, like this was even 4 years ago, would announce them in a way that they were more detrimental to my being versus, hey, this is part of who I am, and I've learned to work it into, what I need to be and how I need to be.
Yeah.
Many times, quite frankly, if you're trying to talk and teach somebody something, it takes that abrupt kind of person to get the point across rather than, you might want to try this.
Yeah. I mean, I'm certainly very direct, very pointed, and that works for some people and it doesn't. And sometimes that happens with potentially new clients where I explain to them, like, listen, if you're looking for a lawyer that's a little bit more sensitive or is going to coddle a little bit more, and those lawyers exist.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just not the guy. Like,
that's why everything has to be a good fit. You talked about synergy. One of the consistent themes that I get, and I guarantee you're going to touch on this, I can just tell from talking to you, but one of the consistent synergies that I get, or consistent answers that I get and concerns to what they've learned, right? Their biggest challenge for a lot of attorneys, it was how to say no to a case. Right. Learning that was not a good fit, that the moment you did the interview, right, that initial consultation, you knew that even if they were willing to say yes, and most likely sometimes they were, that it wasn't actually advantageous for the firm. It wasn't a good fit. They would find a better representation somewhere else. And we have a lot of, in sales, it's the same thing. And I'm sure you understand that, right? Especially in an agency environment, you take someone because they have the money and they say yes. And you're like, we need the money. But then as you get older, and you start to believe certain philosophies like Stoic, right? then you go, hey man, I really like you. I really want your money, but this is not a good fit. And I think you should talk to these folks, down the line here. They'll probably be great for you. And maybe you can, you try to say, what I try to do is say, as I say, keep the bridge intact so that they don't feel that I dishonored them in any way, but it's just not a good fit, man. I'm not trying to take it away from you so that you buy with me. Because I get that too. Like, no, I really want to do business with you. No, I really get that, man, but it's not a good fit.
Not a good fit. Yeah.
Not a good fit.
Down that road. Absolutely. Sometimes the best cases are the cases I've said no to. So
yes, exactly. Because you knew that taking it ultimately would cost you more money than you could ever possibly make from it.
Yeah. If it's something that's going to impact my, sanity, or it's not enjoyable to work on. I'm at a place in my career where I'm very fortunate to be able to sort of pick and choose, for sure.
No, I agree. What would you say is your number one proudest moment from the time you were born until the time you're here with me now?
It'd have to be, putting aside obviously like family achievements and things like that, if we're speaking strictly professionally,
yes,
it's definitely got to be opening this MLE Law to, yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of risk involved in doing it. I wrote about this on LinkedIn, and it got some attention that I opened the firm right after I had earned the most money I had ever earned in my legal career. I walked in 2 days afterwards and said, yeah, I'm out. With no real, I had a plan, obviously, but I didn't.
That was a leap of faith more than anything else.
Well, I didn't know.
At least that's the way I hear it. I don't.
Yeah, no. That's you're right. I didn't know if the plan would work. The game plan was to do this game, to continue to represent businesses, right? Corporations, large, medium, and small, but to have a really bold and aggressive social media presence, unlike what you kind of see from normal lawyers, to have a very aggressive approach in commenting on issues publicly, and
very transparent too. I can see that from your posts and from the videos that you don't hold back.
No, and that could have completely backfired. I had no idea if it was going to work. I thought it would work, but it
didn't backfire for Tom McDonald and Eminem though, right? So you have to. And I'm not saying you're as extreme as them, but sometimes being the extreme voice is you find out that you're really not as extreme as you may thought. There was a huge number of people that one of the things. Go ahead.
That became a theme with this, because what ended up happening is I hear from a lot of other lawyers about they want to do the same thing, and I've given seminars on it now. So when I'm, they have all these laws.
That becomes inspiration. Like dude, I know you're feeling that. Like you've become not just successful at your business, but an inspiration to other people in the industry.
I get messages on LinkedIn about it. I just gave a talk a couple of weeks ago to the seminar group, a bunch of lawyers, about social media and the law and building your brand and all that stuff. So it kind of worked out, and now it's branched into doing like funny TikToks and a whole bunch of other stuff.
And who knows where the hell it'll go in the next 10 years. Let me just say that. I hope we'll have you back in a year. I would love to have you back in a year to see where things are. Just throw that out there now.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'd love to be back. It'd be awesome.
So in this journey, who do you think would be, and you can name more than one if you feel the need, but who do you think would be the mentor that gave you the best piece of advice? And if you have more than one that you want to share, by all means.
So, I have kind of two sets of mentors, right? The first group of mentors were my prior employers, or lawyers that I worked with at my prior firm.
Attorneys, right?
Yeah, that taught me how to be a lawyer, and that ultimately became my business partners. They really did teach me how to practice at a very, very high level. Now, we ultimately all had a big falling out when I decided to leave, do this very differently. You see it. I kind of liken it, not that we're the same at all, but you look at the Brady-Belichick breakup, right? Brady was with Coach Belichick for 20 years.
Yeah.
He's not the Brady that he would be today without Coach Belichick, but it was time.
And vice versa.
Right, exactly. But it was time for a separation. Yeah. Those two could not.
Nothing in this world lasts forever. It's honestly, I think the more people that understand that, the more they'll have an easy time when things change.
And I wouldn't be the lawyer I am today without those lawyers that were my mentors. But we have a fundamental difference now. I'm different than when they first met me.
20 years later.
So it was time to separate. And, that's hard to do from everyone's side. right? So
emotionally too, I imagine, because you were emotionally tied to some of these. I can assume that you absolutely were. You partnered up with them, so.
Yeah, but it was time to change. And so from a mentorship standpoint, how to be a lawyer, they were the influence. And I'm never shy about that. From a business perspective, though, there wasn't anybody individually, that I know personally that mentored me, but certainly I looked at certain influencers or things I read. Gary Vaynerchuk was a big part of what I did. I mean, I don't follow him as much now, but
right.
The idea of putting yourself out there, right? And certainly Stoic philosophy, right? Like the idea of most of what we fear is stuff that hasn't even happened yet.
Right.
So, or may never happen.
We spend more time fearing what has never, and many times will never come to volition.
So when I decided to go out on my own, I had fear, and I realized, well, I mean, I'm fearful of something that hasn't happened, may never happen.
Right. Push it away, man.
Those types of things from a business standpoint were tremendously and remain tremendously influential on me. I always make sure, and I think I always say to myself, I'm doing things differently, right? But I want to make sure that I continue to do things differently. So
right, you don't want to stay stagnant in your, even though it's different, if you stay stagnant in your different ways, they will become the same, and other people will mock them too, right?
Correct. So I'm always making sure to question what I'm doing. Am I, and I don't believe in change for the sake of change. That's not my philosophy. Like I want to make sure, am I doing things?
You don't fix what's not broken.
And am I doing things that are best for my organization, whatever that may be. So if it's okay, you were doing great on Facebook, let's pivot to TikTok. Does that make sense for you? Yeah, but now it makes sense to pivot. So those types of things. And those were the kind of influences and remain the influences on me today. I mean, I look to people that are dynamic. I don't do like this whole, I'm going to crowdsource a bunch of different opinions when I make decisions. That's not my style either. Like I try to stay confident in my decision-making process. Don't always make the right decision, but I'm pretty comfortable with knowing kind of what's best for my organization. That makes sense.
No, I have a little saying that I came up with personally, one of my own. I believe it to be. You can call it Stoic if you want, but be true to you, and you'll pull through.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That makes complete sense to me.
How do I say it? When what's funny is most time when I give philosophy, I try to say me and I, so that I'm not telling someone else how to be, but I tell them through my own experience. But that one just came to me because, the biggest thing is we also speak many times these little things to ourselves. So if I'm speaking to myself, right, I kind of want to hear myself say to me, right, you be true to you, and you're going to pull through. It's going to be, you stay true to you, and everything's going to work out exactly the way that it's supposed to. So,
I agree completely.
I love the conversation, man. Really do. Yeah. What's some of the daily rituals that a crazy SOB like you does, man? What's one of the ones you consider that you find most important that you can't, like, it's just one of those, and I guarantee you have a couple, because I just kind of know the guy, right? So tell me some of those things that you would consider most important.
I mean, I don't know about ritual, but certainly working out tremendously important to me.
Working out, like physically, you mean like doing the work? Well, okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Physically,
I was in the gym.
Yeah, I was a amateur competitive weightlifter a couple of years back, and still do some of that stuff, Olympic weightlifting. But then the other thing is, I always make sure to take some time, whether it's not always in the morning, could be the morning or the evening, but to make sure I read the Daily Stoic every day, which is a very short read. And then I also try to read something that might be completely not related to my work.
Right.
So those are probably the two most important rituals.
Yeah, and the same journey to find, when I found that book because I was looking for a new book on philosophy. Have you seen this one by chance?
I have not.
So the title of it is simply The Philosophy Book, right? Big Ideas Simply Explained. Now, I will say it doesn't necessarily focus on Stoic philosophy, but there's obviously a lot of it in there, right? And it's still, I think you would find it. What I love about it is the same reason that you're talking about. I go to it because it has nothing to do with law. It has nothing to do with what I do in my personal life. It has to do with the philosophy of living life and what is most important.
Important. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Love it.
No, I get that. Yeah. you would like it. I'll just read, like, there's just two off that I saw when I got it, like off the cover. They have all these ones, right? So the universe has not always existed. To me, I think that speaks volumes when you talk about change. Like, it hasn't always been here and it's not always going to be. Make it for what it is, right? Live life for what it is at every single moment. That's what that says to me.
Absolutely.
And then the end justifies the means. That's one that I could argue both sides, right? Like, I could have a lovely debate with anybody who wants to have it on how do you actually take those words? You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I agree. And I think that's all like interesting stuff. And for me, those concepts permeate, what I do.
They do. That's I've never brought these books up, just so you know, only with you.
Yeah.
So, they just seemed appropriate. So
absolutely.
What's something that most people don't know about you, like a quirk, a strange habit? And when you're thinking about that, I'm going to give you a double question here, because many times it ends up being the same. And what is one of the craziest things you've ever done? So many times, one of the craziest things you've ever done is something that nobody knows about you. It can be two different things, but there you go. What's something, a quirk, strange habit that most people don't know? And then what's the craziest thing you've ever done?
Yeah. So quirk, strange habit. I mean, I don't know about, there's not much that people don't know about me, because part of
because you're an open book
doing is I kind of put myself out there. So I don't know about quirk or strange habit, but I mean, certainly, I love animals. I had 2 dogs. One recently passed away. So
sorry to hear that.
No, that's 16 years, great life. Still have another dog. So one of my habits, I don't think it's quirky or strange, is I'm just obviously very dedicated to my animals.
Yes.
So my dog will tend to take priority sometimes over things that maybe people think she shouldn't. But she does. Craziest thing I've ever done, I've been lucky to have a lot of like just really great experiences. I'd say the craziest thing ever, though, was I literally decided one day, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to India, China, and New Zealand.
That's a hell of a trip.
Yeah, I was like, fuck. I mean, it's a very bizarre trip. It's not like,
but you're seeing some serious corners of the earth.
Yeah, there was really no rhyme or reason to those 3 locations in one trip.
Yeah, I kind of got the feeling that you literally just flipped a coin to figure out the 3 destinations.
and this was well before the work remote thing was like a thing.
Right.
And I told my law firm, I'm like, well, I'm just going to go. I'll be able to work remotely. They were like, what? And I was like, yeah, it's not a problem. And I just took off for almost a month while still practicing. And so that was pretty crazy. And then there was a bunch of craziness on those trips. And I
do that. We could have a whole episode, I'm sure, on each destination. So I
travel a ton. So within my travels in my 47 years on this earth, there's probably a zillion crazy stories out there. So
yeah, I'll when we're done recording, I'm going to share something with you, and you'll find it quite interesting, I'm sure.
Awesome.
So I think I got a little bit of this. It was up New England area. So where are you from, and what was it like growing up there?
I grew up primarily in Cranston, Rhode Island.
Cranston,
which is oddly the hometown for Family Guy, or
right.
Quahog is based on Cranston,
right?
Which is sort of, I guess, Cranston's claim to fame. It wasn't a crazy upbringing. I grew up in sort of a mid to lower class, standard American family, only child. Not a lot of outrageousness or anything really terribly challenging. Right. Other than I was like, I got to get the fuck out of here. Like, I cannot stand the state. And I love Rhode Island.
This is not where I want to live the rest of my life. No. I don't mind growing up here, but it's time for a change. Yeah,
and since I left, I've grown to appreciate Rhode Island for all of the Rhode Island things that it has, and there's plenty of them. And certainly, I'm still a Rhode Islander at heart. I mean, I'm huge New England sports fan that came from when I was a little kid. Patriots, Red Sox, Celtics, Bruins, all of it. So, but I would say growing up, I had a really good, solid childhood. Nice. I just knew, though, that I wasn't going to make my life in Rhode Island. I didn't know where it would be. I didn't know it would be Miami or Fort Lauderdale, but I knew it wasn't going to be there. And there wasn't anything bad associated with that.
No, it's just not your choice.
Yeah, it's just not your thing. I wanted to see the world a little bit more. So.
No, and not only that, but you don't have to worry about it, because we had the Farley brothers that came up in '90 and showed us all just how cool Rhode Island is, right? Like, I mean, almost every single one of their movies. One of my favorite ones is Providence is in the name. Mary? I'm trying to remember. Yeah. No, I mean, I love Mary too, But there's another one they did that a lot of people don't know about that was a college movie, and it was about a guy that was kind of a defunct getting sent up to Providence and a school up there. I'm trying to remember. It was the brothers, but it wasn't the same production team. But nonetheless, all of those movies, I've loved them because they really did show us, hey, we might be in Rhode Island, but we're another state, and there's a lot of crazy stuff happening up here too.
Yeah, I mean, look, Rhode Island's great. I still have family there, and I go back every year, both to see family and for the Pats. So,
no, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Still good. Yeah.
So, if you had to name one colleague that you're working with now, who would you name when I ask you this? Who do you most respect in your industry?
Oh, that's easy. Very easy. Got to be my best friend, Joshua Enton, without question. We met in law school, became really good buddies, and always talked about working together, and tried a few times, most recently, before I opened up my own practice, tried to get him to come into my old firm. That didn't work for a whole host of reasons, which my old firm probably looks at now and might regret. If they don't, they should. As they sometimes say, sometimes the best trades are the trades you don't make.
Right.
And so when I had whatever happened to me at my prior firm happen, it was my Josh who said, look, open your own thing, come over to my office, kind of opened his doors. And we have separate law firms, but we do a lot of work together. We just bought an office.
But you're in the same roof though. So you share space, but not practice. Is that correct?
Well, we just bought an office building together. So now we own the building together, which we're renovating. We were in the same office together. Now we're both at our houses, but until the building's done. And we do work a lot of cases together, but we probably practice law together.
Right.
A lot of cases together. We probably talk 10 times a day. But, I really
say his name one more time, if you don't mind.
Joshua Enton.
Joshua Enton. Nice. I'm going to reach out to him and try to get him on the show. I'd like to hear. I'd like to hear the other side of the story.
Yeah, I think he's the smartest lawyer. He is the smartest lawyer I know, both from a legal standpoint, but he's really exceptional. And I've learned this, been working with him even the last few years, from a real practical strategy point, which I was good at, but I wasn't as good as this guy. And I've learned a ton, and truly, I really don't make a lot of moves on the legal side. He's the first person I call.
Right, like you get his advice and his input at least at the bare minimum before you make necessarily a decision.
And it's just he's always bringing me a different perspective. Right. So tremendous. I mean, he's my best friend. There's just no other way to put it.
No, it's awesome. It's awesome. So here's a couple of easy ones. Favorite podcast and favorite conference?
Favorite conference is the MIT Sports Analytics Conference, which I haven't been to in a while, but that's one of my favorites. Favorite podcast? So I listen to a ton of sports podcasts.
Oh, I imagine.
All of which are Patriots-centric. I love the Tony Kornheiser show, but they're all kind of in the same zone, right? Like, they're sports podcasts. They're great escape. It's great escapism. So I would say favorite podcast that's not sports related is 99% Invisible.
99% Invisible. I'll have to check that.
Yeah, it's about things that exist but that we don't see. It deals a lot with like architecture, planning, but also like the latest episode was the origin of the bleep. So you know how when there's a swear word on radio, TV, there's a beep, right? The whole episode dealt with where'd that come from, and then kind of discussed concepts about, is the bleep really even worth it anymore? Because when there's a bleep now, everyone kind of knows what it is. So really,
there's actually more. It's more emphasized that you're cursing when you get the bleep than when you're not bleeped.
They had another episode about the tunnels. I don't know. In Minneapolis, right? The whole city's connected by tunnels, by skyways. And they had a whole episode about the origin of those skyways and then how those skyways actually contributed to or helped establish different classifications of people. And really interesting stuff. So
no, that one actually sounds. I watched a documentary years ago, and what you talked here reminded me because it was literally the documentary is F.U.C.K. Right. So it's
right.
And it goes into the origin of the word. I mean, we're talking about a 90-minute true examination of that word. And most people, when they actually go and watch it, they get a whole new perspective of that word and why, number one, it's the oldest word. We cannot find its true origin. These guys did some digging, and everybody thinks that it's fornication under the consent of the king, that's where the word came. That was actually just given to it because it just simply put was, convenient enough that it worked. Right. Someone made it work. I mean, I can take almost any word and come up with a dumb acronym. Sure. So, when you actually do when you watch the show, you're like, wow, man, this is quite an interesting word, because it's also said the same way in almost every language. Yeah. It's not said differently. If you go over to Japan and some dude's, throwing the F-bomb, he's throwing the F-bomb, right? It's not. So
yeah, that's fascinating. I love that stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah, you would dig that. Last question.
Yeah.
What would you say is your favorite tool and or piece of software that you use throughout your day?
Oh, I mean, it's got to be social media.
Social media as a whole. Gotcha.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a tool or software, but
no, it is. Is there one that you particularly that you kind of lean towards as your favorite?
I mean, I don't know about favorite, but LinkedIn is certainly a place where I've developed a community.
Right.
So that's been great for me, but also Instagram and obviously I'm having some fun with TikTok these days. So I'm really excited to start doing more of these sort of funnier, off the beaten path type lawyer videos. This profession takes itself way too serious, and there's a lot of humor in it. So I plan to.
You are 100% correct. Well, listen, man, don't leave. I'm going to stop the recording. I want to say something to you if you don't mind.
Yeah,
but
no problem.
I really loved having you. I definitely want to reach out to your partner. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that again to make sure I get his name right.
Yep.
But I know he's not technically your partner, but your best friend and / partner in life, or something like that. So
something like that.
But it was honestly, it was a pleasure talking to you. Fascinating. You share some of the same core beliefs that I do. And with that said, I will look forward to having you on again another day. And what I will say, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. With that, I would like to say just real quick to the audience, thank you so much for tuning in again. And we will be back on the next episode. Have a great day. God bless all of you.
Thanks for listening to 15 Minutes. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.